Women's bodies have always been used to sell objects or products. You know, the sexy lie is that if you have a certain look as a woman, then doors will open for you, but that's not the full picture. When I was asked to curate this exhibition, I was specifically given an era from the 70s, 80s and 90s, which coincides with me. I was born in the 70s. So all this work from the Arts Council collection, which was a really important collection because for photographers who weren't working commercially, it was a source of recognition and funding. But, so it played such an important role in our visual history, in our photography history. And the 70s to the 90s, photography went under a great change. It started documentary, and then there was a lot of feminist work came out towards the 70s and the 80s, and then it moved into the art world, and it was set free. And there's not one of us that doesn't have the innate visual intelligence to be able to decipher an image. What I don't like is high profit and profit margins are erosive, are corrosive and erode young women's and men's sense of self and self-confidence and self-esteem, trying to live up to this unattainable, narrow definition of beauty that we're selling with all these products and clothes and everything else. And you know, I love being a woman. It's great to dress up and to be young and to do all that sort of thing, but I don't want to be either objectified or objectify myself, because I know now, I'm 43, and I suppose instinctively I've known that it's not empowering to be objectified. And I think there's something going on with our visual culture, whether it's music or advertising, that is undermining that is kind of filling our heads with nonsense about perfection, and that we are measured by our appearance rather than our intellect. And I can see the visual language that's being used in a lot of these adverts, like American Apparel, is coming from porn. And the problem with pornography is, you know, kids have access to this now. And I do worry that, you know, the influence of porn is affecting girls' and boys' relationships. And I think also aspects of our advertising, like American Apparel, are kind of normalizing that and saying it's okay. We've been sort of brainwashed to thinking that we're inadequate to the women and the men that we see in adverts. And obviously we have a buffer. We know that advertising is what it is. This sort of limited language that adverts like American Apparel trade off is highly influential, subliminal. So, you know, it just seems to be a quick fix now for companies if their profit margins have gone down. It's right, let's get out the guns, let's get out the gun for hire. And there's always a photographer that's, you know, will work in that way. Well, in the 70s, there was just the climate of casual sexism that we were so, it was so normalized that we almost didn't notice, apart from very brave women who stood up against it.
Oh, Cinnamon, where you gonna run to? Cinnamon, where you gonna run to? Gonna run to all on that day. Will I run to the rock? Please hide me, I run to the rock.
But there was an innocence to the 70s, and actually also what's interesting is when you do see nudity in 70s advertising, it's more about naturalism. So they managed to cover a broad base of consumers, but in a responsible way. And I really clearly remember this, lad culture came in. You had Loaded, you had FHM, you had Nuts magazine, all these sort of magazines that were, normally being on this top shelf, were brought down as sort of lifestyle magazines. It seemed to normalise, the very fact that it was on supermarket shelves, it seemed to normalise this new aesthetic and this new way of pretending to empower women but not empowering them, using the same old tricks. They kind of hijacked that idea of sexual equality and sexual empowerment. Suddenly it seemed to be okay to be offering yourself as a person. It's almost like self-objectification. And what came with that as well was Photoshop and retouching. And suddenly we had people behind the camera and retouchers on the screen sort of recreating out of what they got, the shot of recreating their idea of what it means to be female. So the standard retouching job on either fashion or advertising will be for a woman to make the breasts bigger, the waist smaller, the eyes bigger, and actually that's what's being peddled, that's what's being sold to us, and it's actually a body frame that doesn't exist. We don't critically engage enough with images. We don't question them enough, and that they fly by us. And I think that's more true than than it ever was. Actually, that we are so used to bodies being manipulated and then used to sell things that we've normalized it. We don't even see it in our culture, but yet we now have human beings changing their physical structure to match a retoucher's idea of the ultimate female body, which doesn't exist in the first place. So it's crazy.